Hey, come on in. You're right on time. I was just practicing how to look calm, festive, and like I absolutely know what I'm doing, which is usually the exact moment something rings, knocks, or unexpectedly jingles. Tonight is one of those Christmas evenings where the lights are soft, the house smells like something warm and slightly overambitious, and everyone agrees this year will be simple, which is brave and almost never true. Because this story begins with a guest who said, very confidently, "I'll just stop by for a minute." You know the kind of minute, the stretchy kind. "I'm Henry, by the way. I'm really glad you're here. Settle in, let your shoulders drop. The chaos is just warming up." So there we were, Linda and I, standing in the kitchen like two people who had just successfully finished a level in a game and didn't want to move in case it reset. The house was calm, suspiciously calm. The Christmas lights were on, but not blinking aggressively. Daisy was asleep in her donut bed, one ear flipped inside out like she'd been folded wrong at the factory. The oven hummed softly, warming something cinnamon adjacent that I had promised wouldn't burn this time. Linda looked at me and said, "This is nice," which historically is a dangerous sentence, because the moment those words settled into the air, right between the smell of oranges and the faint sound of snow doing its polite little tap against the windows, the doorbell rang. Not an urgent ring, not a panicked ring, a cheerful ring, the kind that says, "I'm not a problem yet." I froze. Linda didn't move either. We both just stared at each other, silently negotiating whose life this was about to become complicated. "I thought everyone was already here," Linda said. "Everyone I invited is," I said. Then added, "I think." The doorbell rang again, same tone, same confidence. Daisy lifted her head, one eye opened. She sighed, deeply, like a dog who had seen this movie before and knew it didn't end early. "I'll get it," I said, already knowing that sentence was a lie. Linda raised an eyebrow. "You're wearing the socks with the snowmen crying." "They're festive," I said. "They're unsettling." The doorbell rang a third time, and now it felt personal. I walked to the door, each step filled with optimism I did not deserve. I opened it with my best relaxed Christmas face. The one that says, "Oh this, yes, we're always like this." Candles lit, emotions stable, and there they were, smiling, coat on, gift bag in hand. Eyes bright, with the unmistakable confidence of someone who had said, "Just for a minute," and truly believed it. "Well, hey," they said. "I was in the neighborhood." "Of course you were." No one ever says, "I rerouted my entire evening and emotional energy to be here." They say neighborhood. It sounds accidental, friendly, non-binding. "Oh," I said, doing that little surprised laugh that buys you half a second to reorganize your soul. "Hi. Wow, this is just a minute," they said quickly, already stepping inside. "I won't even sit down." And that's when the minute clock started. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this, but time behaves differently around Christmas guests. A minute isn't 60 seconds. It's more of a suggestion, a vibe, a loose agreement between strangers that immediately collapses once shoes come off. Because the coat came off. And when a coat comes off, that's not a minute anymore. That's an introduction. Linda appeared in the hallway, smiling with the precision of someone who had just adjusted expectations internally. "Hi," she said warmly. Merry Christmas? Merry Christmas, the guest said. I was just dropping something off. They held up the gift bag. Tissue paper peeked out, festive and dangerous. Oh, you didn't have to, Linda said, which is something people say even though it's too late. Daisy wandered over and sniffed the newcomer's ankle. She wagged once, slowly, like, I will tolerate you for now. I really can't stay, the guest said again, nodding earnestly. I've got so much going on. And that's when Linda said the three words that legally turn a minute into a situation. Well, come in. Not stay, not sit, just come in. But the house heard it. The lights glowed a little brighter. The cinnamon smell leaned in. The chairs straightened themselves. I tried to help by saying, we were actually just about to. Oh, perfect, the guest said. I won't interrupt. They were already looking around. At the tree, at the table, at the thing in the oven that was making promises it might not keep. This smells amazing, they said. Thank you. It wasn't finished, and now it knew it was being observed. Would you like some tea? Linda asked. This is important. This is where the minute officially clocked out. Oh, no, the guest said. I couldn't. Then paused. Well, maybe just a splash. A splash is not a measurement, it's an invitation. I filled the kettle. We all moved into the living room, standing at first, because sitting would mean settling, and settling would mean acknowledgement. The guest placed the gift bag gently on the coffee table. For you, they said. For us? I asked. Well, yes. I mean, you'll see. Mysterious gifts are never small. Linda peeked inside. Oh my goodness, she said. You shouldn't have. Which, again, did not rewind time. Daisy sat, which is her way of saying, I'm staying. The guests checked their watch. Well, I really should go, they said. No one moved. They took a sip of tea. That's good. The kettle felt proud. And then, because Christmas is nothing if not opportunistic, the oven timer went off. Just a polite little ding. Oh, Linda said. That's ready. The guest's eyes lit up. Oh, wow. What is that? I stared at the oven like it had betrayed me. Well, I said slowly, it's sort of a thing. Oh, I won't have any, the guest said quickly. I couldn't. Then paused. Well, maybe just a taste. And that's when I realized something important. This wasn't a guest anymore. This was a chapter. Linda caught my eye from across the room. She smiled. The kind of smile that says, we will survive this, but not unchanged. Outside, the snow picked up just a little. Inside, the minutes stretched. And as I reached for an extra plate we definitely hadn't planned for, the doorbell rang again. Not cheerful this time. Curious, and I thought, oh no, we're gonna need more minutes. That second doorbell ring didn't sound impatient. It didn't sound apologetic either. It sounded confident, like it knew we were already compromised. Everyone froze. The guest, still technically just stopping by, now holding a mug they didn't ask for, tilted their head. Oh, they said lightly. Are you expecting someone else? Linda and I answered at the same time. No. Yes. We stared at each other. I thought you texted, Linda began. I absolutely did not, I said. I have been very intentional this year. The doorbell rang again. Same rhythm, same cheerful certainty. Daisy stood up and stretched so slowly it felt ceremonial. Her tail wagged once, not excitement. Acceptance. No, I've got it, I said. I'll get it, Linda said. Neither of us moved. The guest smiled, that gentle smile people use when they've already stayed too long but don't want to acknowledge it. I really don't want to intrude. You're past the gates, I thought. The village is yours now. I opened the door. Neighbor Carl stood there, beaming like a man who had won something small but meaningful. Now, Carl is the kind of neighbor who doesn't knock unless he's sure the knock will be welcomed. He has that confidence. Earned? Unclear. Persistent? Absolutely. He wore a Christmas sweater featuring a reindeer doing something athletic and possibly unsafe. There was motion stitched into it. Commitment. Henry, Carl said. There you are. I saw your lights on. Yes, that's usually how this works. Merry Christmas, I said, bracing myself. Merry Christmas, he boomed, already stepping inside like the door had personally waved him in. I just need one thing, Carl said. Won't take a minute. The minute counter snapped clean off the wall. Behind me, Linda appeared, holding a serving spoon like it was part of her identity now. Oh, hi, Carl, she said warmly. We were just... I won't stay, Carl said immediately. Just a quick thing. The guest nodded in solidarity. They had found their people. Daisy trotted over and sat directly in front of Carl. He knelt to pet her. This became a whole moment. Daisy leaned in. Carl whispered something to her. I chose not to ask. So, Carl said, standing, I smelled something incredible. The oven flinched. Linda laughed politely. It's almost done. Well, don't let me interrupt, Carl said. Then he leaned against the counter, one elbow, casual, settled. That's not the posture of a man leaving. I glanced at the clock. It blinked back at me like I gave up earlier. Carl looked around. Oh, you've got company. Just for a minute, the guest and I said together. We locked eyes. Something sacred passed between us. Linda poured Carl some tea. Because we are good people. Flawed, but good. Honestly, Carl said, taking a sip. I was just wondering if you had any extra extension cords. Of course. For the lights? Linda asked. Yep. Turns out when you add one inflatable snowman, it changes the math. I nodded seriously. That checks out. It didn't, but Christmas math is imaginary anyway. I think we might, I said. Garage. I'll come with you, Carl said. Naturally. We stepped into the garage, where cold air and unfinished projects live in quiet judgment. I rummaged through a box labeled seasonal maybe. You folks doing anything special tonight? Carl asked. Nope, I said. Keeping it simple. Carl smiled. That's the best kind. He paused. You wouldn't mind if I brought the kids by later, would you? They just want to see your tree. Later is not a time. Later is a lifestyle. I began. We'll see, Linda called from inside. Firm, gentle, heroic. I handed Carl the cords. Perfect, he said. I'll just be a minute. I did not acknowledge this. When we returned inside, the guest was sitting now, not fully back on the couch, but no longer pretending the edge was temporary. Linda had plated the thing from the oven. It smelled unfairly good. Oh, wow, the guest said. You really didn't have to. I know, Linda said, but it's Christmas. That sentence ends arguments and starts traditions. We all took a bite. It was quiet for a second. The good kind of quiet. The kind where you forgive the room for filling up. Carl nodded. That's excellent. Daisy received a very small, carefully approved bite. Her loyalty deepened to lifelong. I really should go, the guest said again, wiping their mouth. I've already stayed longer than I meant to. They checked the clock. The clock refused eye contact. Outside, snow thickened. Not dramatically, just enough to complicate honesty. Linda stood. I'll grab you a container for the rest. Oh no, the guest said. Linda was already opening drawers. Carl stood too. I should head out as well. He didn't move. We all stood there, hovering. 4 adults, 1 dog. 1 living room that had officially shifted categories. Then Daisy barked. Not loud, just once. We turned. Through the window, headlights eased into the driveway. Slow, careful, familiar. A car door opened. Then another. I felt that soft drop in my stomach, not panic, recognition. Is that? Linda asked. I squinted. Oh, now. The front door opened before we could stop it. Surprise! Came a voice we knew well. Friends. More than one. Coats, laughter, cold air rushing in like it had been waiting patiently. We were nearby, one of them said. Just for a minute. The house gave up completely. Shoes piled, chairs shifted. The kettle refilled itself out of pure resentment. The guest laughed. Well, this escalated. Carl clapped his hands. Now this is Christmas. I leaned against the wall and watched it all happen. The lights, the noise, Linda moving through the room with the calm efficiency of someone who had surrendered but chosen joy. She caught my eye. We smiled. Because somehow, despite the plans dissolving, despite the minutes multiplying, this worked. Until someone said it. So, one of the friends asked casually, who's staying over? Silence. The snow outside picked up just enough to matter. Inside, the couch looked very, very full. And that's when I realized no one here had planned to sleep. The question hung there. So, who's staying over? It was asked gently, casually, like it didn't have the power to completely restructure the night. Everyone looked around, not at each other exactly, more like at the idea of each other. The guest, my original minute-sized guest, let out a soft laugh. Oh goodness, they said. Not me. I live 10 minutes away. 10 minutes is nothing, unless it's snowing, or late, or you've already taken your shoes off twice. Carl rubbed his hands together. Well, I'm just popping back and forth. Kids might swing by later. Later again. That word was having a big night. One of the friends shrugged. We're flexible. That was the problem. Everyone was flexible. No one was decisive. Linda cleared her throat, not loudly, just enough to remind the room she existed. Well, she said warmly, let's not decide anything yet. Bless her. Let's eat, she added. That sentence has never made anything worse. Plates appeared. Somehow. Extra chairs materialized from rooms I didn't remember owning. Someone moved a lamp without asking. That's when you know it's serious. Daisy made her rounds, checking knees, approving laps. She stopped near the guest and rested her head there, heavy and intentional. Oh, the guest said softly. Well, I guess I can stay a bit longer. The minute stretched again, put on pajamas, settled in. Conversation bubbled up in uneven bursts. Someone talked about traffic. Someone else about a new recipe they'd absolutely never make again. Carl explained the structural challenges of inflatable snowmen to a group that did not ask. I sat back and watched. There's a moment in nights like this, right after the chaos peaks, before exhaustion sets in, a sweet spot. Laughter isn't forced yet. No one's checking the time too often. You stop trying to control it. That's where we were. Linda caught my eye from across the room. She mouthed, "Are you okay?" I nodded. I was. Surprisingly. At some point, someone turned on music. Soft, instrumental, safe. The kind of music that feels like it's wearing a sweater. Snow pressed against the windows, quiet but persistent. "I should really head out soon," the guest said again. This time it landed differently. Not like a defense, more like a thought. "Well," Linda said gently, "let's see how the roads look." Ah yes, the final trap. Phones came out, brows furrowed, murmurs. Oh, yeah, that's not great. Snow had opinions now, Carl chuckled. "Guess we picked the right house." I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning. Someone refilled mugs, someone else brought out cookies we'd forgotten we owned. They tasted like nutmeg and good intentions. The guest took one bite and sighed. "Okay," they said, "these are dangerous." I smiled. They were meant for emergencies. This counted. Time moved sideways. Stories started showing up. Carl told one about a Christmas where the power went out and everyone ate cereal by candlelight. He laughed harder than anyone else. One of the friends talked about getting lost on the way here. Not lost, lost, emotionally lost. We all nodded like we understood. Linda shared a small story about her grandmother's ornaments. Not sad, just soft, like a blanket you remember. I listened. I always listen more when things get like this. The guest leaned closer. "I didn't mean to crash your night." I shook my head. "You didn't, and that was true." They smiled, relieved. Daisy snored, loudly, on someone's foot. Then came the practical phase. "Okay," someone said, "if people are staying," there it was. Cushions were evaluated, blankets were counted. The guest volunteered the couch immediately, which only made everyone argue that they shouldn't. Carl checked his phone. "Roads are getting worse." Linda looked at me. That look again, the "we're hosting now" look. I shrugged. We wasn't sure where, but the sentence felt right. And once it's said, the house adjusts. We found a spare air mattress, still in the box, a little dusty, optimistic. Someone tested it, bounced once. Approved, the guest laughed. I really was just stopping by. "I know," Linda said. "That's how the best nights start." That landed. Outside, the snow made the world smaller, quieter, like it was gently insisting everyone stay put. Later, much later, voices softened. Yawns appeared, stretches. That long blink people do when they don't want to admit they're tired. We dimmed the lights, the music faded, shoes lined up near the door like they'd always lived there. The guest brushed their teeth in our bathroom. I heard the water run and felt something shift. Not annoyance, not pride, connection. Carl announced he was heading home before it got any worse, promised to return the extension cords. Hugged everyone, Daisy included. The friends settled in, blankets negotiated, temperature debated. I stood in the kitchen, rinsing mugs. Linda joined me, leaned her hip against the counter. "Well," she said quietly, "this wasn't the plan." "No," I said. She smiled. "But it's nice." It was. From the living room, the guest called out softly, "Henry?" "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For opening the door." I didn't answer right away, because sometimes that's all it is. You open the door. The rest happens. I turned off the last light. Snow kept falling, and as I headed toward bed, stepping over blankets and sleeping feet, I realized something. Tomorrow morning was going to be complicated. Coffee logistics, breakfast math, who eats what, who leaves when. But tonight was full. And just as I pulled the bedroom door closed, I heard a sleepy voice from the couch say, "You know, I might stay for breakfast." I smiled. "Of course you will." Morning arrived the way it always does after a night like that. Quiet. Careful. As if it didn't want to scare anyone awake. Light slipped through the curtains in thin, polite stripes. It landed on the arm of the couch, on a stack of blankets that had clearly hosted several generations of sleepers overnight, on one lonely sock near the coffee table that looked confused about how it got there, and even more confused about where its partner had gone. I woke up before my alarm, which only happens when my brain decides it's time to take attendance. I lay there for a moment, not moving, just listening. Soft breathing from the living room. A gentle snore that definitely wasn't Daisy, even though she would later deny it. The heater clicking on and off, working harder than it had planned to. Outside, I could hear snowplows in the distance. That low, scraping sound, like the world slowly being tidied up. Linda stirred beside me. "Well," she murmured, eyes still closed. "We did it." "Did what?" I whispered. She smiled without opening her eyes. "We hosted. Accidentally." I slid out of bed carefully, stepping around Daisy, who had somehow migrated during the night, and now lay sprawled across the floor like a very content hallway rug. I paused, calculated my step, still almost tripped. Daisy opened one eye, judged me, went back to sleep. The kitchen greeted me like an old friend who had opinions but wasn't going to say them out loud. Mugs in the sink, a spoon in a place spoons don't belong. Crumbs on the counter forming little constellations of last night. And there at the table sat the guest. My original guest. The 1-minute guest. They were wrapped in a blanket that definitely wasn't theirs. Hair doing something bold and unplanned, holding a mug with both hands like it was a small miracle. "Oh," they said softly when they saw me. "Morning, morning," I replied. "How'd you sleep?" They smiled. "Better than expected. That's the best kind." "Coffee?" I asked. They nodded. "If that's okay." At this point, coffee wasn't optional. It was infrastructure. As it brewed, the house slowly woke up. One of the friends shuffled in next, squinting at the light like it had personally wronged them. Another followed, immediately apologizing. "I don't know what for," they said, "but it felt right." Linda appeared not long after, already dressed, already calm. That quiet superpower of hers. She kissed my cheek and immediately started pulling plates from the cabinet like she'd been planning breakfast since midnight. "Okay," she said gently, addressing the room without raising her voice. "We've got eggs, bread, something that might be bacon if we're brave." There was a collective murmur of approval. Daisy sat in the center of it all, tail sweeping the floor slowly. She looked proud, like she'd hosted. Breakfast came together in that loose, cooperative way that only happens when no one is in charge, but everyone wants to help. Someone cracked eggs too aggressively. Someone else burned toast, but insisted it was on purpose. We found syrup we didn't remember buying and accepted it without questions. Outside, the snow was still falling, but lighter now. Decorative, like it was wrapping things up. We sat, we ate, we lingered. Conversation floated in and out. A joke about sleeping positions. A quiet moment remembering a childhood Christmas. Someone admitting they hadn't felt this relaxed in weeks. The guest laughed at something one of the friends said, then paused. "You know," they said, stirring their coffee slowly, "I almost didn't come by last night." "Oh," Linda said, looking up. "Yeah, I really meant it. Just a minute." We all smiled. "I'm glad you did," I said. They nodded. "Me too." Time loosened its grip that morning. No one rushed. Phones stayed face down. The snow outside made sure of it. Eventually, goodbyes began. The soft kind. One friend hugged Linda longer than expected. Another promised to text when they got home. Carl waved from across the street, holding his extension cords up triumphantly like he'd completed a quest. The house emptied slowly, respectfully. The guest was last. They stood by the door, coat on now, shoes laced. The minute had finally returned to its original size. "Well," they said, smiling, "thank you for letting my minute expand." I chuckled. It had good intentions. They hesitated, then hugged me. Brief, warm. The kind of hug that says this mattered. "Merry Christmas," they said. "Merry Christmas," I replied. When the door closed, the house exhaled. Not relief, completion. Linda leaned against me. Daisy flopped down at our feet with a dramatic sigh. Outside, the snow finally stopped. And if you're still here with me, thank you. For listening. For staying. Sometimes the best moments arrive unannounced. They knock softly. And all you have to do is open the door. All right, before we let this night settle all the way down, let's ease out together. If you're lying there right now, a little heavier in the eyes than when we started, that's perfect. That means the story did its job. Or the day finally loosened its grip. Sometimes it's hard to tell which one deserves the credit. I'm really glad you spent this time with me. Truly. These little moments, quiet stories, borrowed minutes, gentle laughter, they matter more than we admit. And if this story felt like a place you could rest for a bit, then you're always welcome back. If you'd like more cozy nights like this, more gentle chaos, more stories that don't rush you anywhere, you know where to find me. I'll be right here, making a cup of something warm and pretending I meant for everything to unfold exactly this way. For now, let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow. Let the lights dim behind your eyes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying longer than a minute. Sleep well, my friend. I'll see you next time.